Welcome to Tom's Engaging HR, podcast dedicated to engaging HR and business leaders who are dedicated to making work better for employees everywhere. Let's go. All right, here we are, episode 1 of Tom's Engaging HR. If you've been following me on social, you know it's been a long time coming. I've been working on this project, this passion for months now, and I couldn't be more excited to be back at the microphone, back having conversations with fantastic people. So we're going to get right to it. We got a really special guest today, a special episode lined up for you. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest, Jon Thurmond, my mentor. The person that's probably most responsible for me being a podcaster is going to be hosting today's show with me as a guest. So if you don't know Jon Thurmond serves as the Mid-Atlantic Regional Human Resources Manager for Team Fishel, a utility engineering and construction firm. His experience includes working across multiple industries in roles encompassing employee, labor relations, recruiting, training, and HR leadership. Jon hosts the Voices of Team Fishel podcast. Jon also holds a Labor Relations Contract Administration Certificate from Cornell University, a Master's in Music Education from the University of Kansas, and a Bachelor's in Music Education from Middle Tennessee State University. Welcome to Tom's Engaging HR, Jon.
Tom, it is great to be here, and I should be thanking you for the opportunity to do this because, man, it's been fun to get back into the saddle a little bit, get prepped, and host this. I'm all here for it. I'm engaged. Just really appreciate it.
Yeah, this is one of those full circle moments, right? My first time ever being on a podcast, I was a guest on your podcast. So it just seemed the only way to launch Tom's Engaging HR was to get you back on. And I when you said yes, I couldn't believe it because I know you're retired, right?
I think retired is a bit strong. We ended HR Social Hour in December of 22. Wendy and I put out 318 episodes in an almost 5-year period. We had a lot of fun along the way, and some of the folks hopefully listening to this show have heard that show. We had a lot of fun. You were part of that ride for us. It was time, and we ended then. It is amazing to continue to see the love that we get from the community for that show. It's also very interesting how many bookers still contact me trying to get their guests on, but hey, it's podcasting, and that's what happens. We handed off the reins of the Twitter chat back in July of last year, 23, to our pal Christy Engler, who's done a great job keeping that going. But again, it was just felt like for Wendy and for me, it was time to say goodbye to that as well, and just try to figure out what's next. Continuing to grow and morph. Yeah, we did the chat for 7 years. Hundreds of them, and it was time for that too. Just to step away, showed up, attended a couple as a guest. That's been super fun. But yeah, man, I like I said, retired. Stepping back though, I definitely have stepped back. I'm not speaking like I used to. Really enjoying more time with my family, staying in my sobriety, which has been really important for me. Yeah, all good things, just not necessarily work world related.
Yeah, I know you and I share a G.I. Joe, I'll say passion. It's something I've loved since I was a kid. Do you still have that podcast going? I know you had a podcast in that world too.
I talk to those guys daily. We have not done a show in some time. I still have the Voices of Team Fishel podcast, which has been a lot of fun because it's a really different platform. It's one where I'm interviewing people I work with about their careers with us, and really, it's kind of a twofold opportunity. It's a great recruiting tool for people to learn about the organization and learn about successful people that have been part of it and how they may be able to be part of that success. But then also for teammates that are internal and want to learn more about, hey, I'm really interested in becoming a supervisor. What was this person's path? And learning more about what did that person do along their way. Been really pleased. It's been a little while since I put out a new show. I am getting ready to restart with new episodes there. Yeah, it's a very different from a social hour. Most of the people that are there have never done anything even close to podcasting, so a little more hands-on in terms of the prep and things. But again, just a lot of fun and a different way to engage, which I think we're all looking for.
Yeah, I mean that's the goal. I think that's the key. I came from employee engagement I've got engaging in the podcast here. Like that really is what a podcast is and should be about, in my opinion, is just engaging other people and hearing and sharing stories. And I've listened to your Team Fishel, and I have no connection whatsoever to your company, and I've listened to it and really enjoyed it. Like I've listened and going, wow, I'm glad I took 20 minutes and listened to this conversation. There's some really cool people everywhere, and that's what podcasting does. It can give anybody and everybody a voice, which is a great thing.
That is why I'm a fan of the medium. While I may not be as active as a participant, I am certainly what they consider a power listener and have been, since 2010. It's so hard to believe that the format has been around. I mean, it's been around longer than that, but I got really active because of G.I. Joe. Got very active listening to hobby type podcasts. The HR came a lot later. And honestly, it was one of those things, particularly when Wendy and I started, it was one of those things where I was like, well, I like doing this G.I. Joe thing. I think I could do something about work and talk to my friends and talk to new people that I get introduced to along the way. And how do I introduce people? And I think that's been a lot of fun. Even if I'm not doing it actively anymore, I'm still out there. People still kind of see me and what have you. And I know when you made the announcement that we were going to be doing this, I got some notes about, hey, this is great. What's up? And I'm like, just it's a one-off. You used retirement. I don't know if it's that strong, but yeah, just that time away. It's been a nice,
like
nice
Tom Brady retirement.
Yeah, maybe. You never know. You never know. This show, whenever this show comes out, a week later, you may hear something from me, but I doubt it. And if it is, I'll be honest, it probably would not be HR. It'd be something else.
Yeah, I mean, you got a lot of passions. It doesn't have to be HR, and it's in a way maybe you've passed the reins for some other folks to get out there. I will say, whether you're recording or not, I'm almost listening to as much of your old HR Social Hour Half Hour podcast as when it was live, just because there's so many people that I keep finding going, oh, they were a guest? Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go back and listen to that.
That's very kind. It's funny. Yeah, I couldn't sit here and name everybody anymore. And it is hard to believe, particularly we hit 6 years of the show, of episode 0 releasing in early February. So, a week or so since we recorded this. And 6 years, it was really striking. Wendy and I still talk a lot, and we were, just talking about the fact that, wow, 6 years has passed since we started. A lot of great things have happened. Some not so great things, just like in this life, right? But
life, yeah.
Like I said, it was great for the time. Really appreciate the fact that we still have listeners and new people finding us, which is incredibly humbling. But yeah, man, like I said, I'm glad to be able to be here talking about what you want to do now with this new thing that you've got going.
Yeah, me too. Getting it started made me automatically start thinking about, oh man, that was so much work. Like someday I might have to retire. And I'm now on episode 1. So I feel I'm like, no, I've done the work. Now let's keep it going.
Well, let's get to it. So you had a podcast previously for some time. You were not a newbie, for lack of a better word. The average show lasts 7 episodes. You did a lot more than that. So what? I don't want to ask what happened in terms of with there, but why something new? Why now?
Yeah, it's so I was encouraged to do it just to learn. I've been in HR roles, but never had a straight HR title. I've done all the functions. I've built compliance. I've done everything. And I started the original podcast to learn, to feel more connected to the space. And that's exactly the same reason I'm doing this now. When I created the last one, I created the episodes, I sourced all the people, I did the editing, I did just about everything. Laura Hunley, who's a good friend of mine, definitely helped me get that off and running in the background. But I did most of everything. But when I left, I left the podcast with my previous employer. So I had to start from scratch. And honestly, it was really cool having to go back to collect my thoughts on, okay, I don't have any barriers. I can do 100% of what I want. What do I want this thing to be? And engaging people is really important to me. So that's why I want to make sure engaging's in there. And I want to keep engaging HR people. That's what I'm passionate about. So that's what this podcast is about. It's curating conversations so that I can continue to meet people, so I can continue to learn and amplify people that are a lot smarter than me, that know a lot of really cool stuff, so that the audience can continue on that same journey. I'm just trying to amplify those conversations.
A podcast like this episode is always somebody's first episode. of podcast in general, right? So there may be somebody that's listening, and welcome everyone that's listening, but there may be somebody here that doesn't know either one of us, or saw the title and said, "Oh, engaging HR, I want to know more." So let's talk about that. Again, you had a lot of conversations. You're starting this new thing. You said why, and you've moved on. Changes in life are constant. We talked about that a little earlier.
Yep.
Why now? Like, why start? And I don't want to feel like I'm grilling you on this. I am just very curious because there are so many things, so many podcasts, so many opportunities out there. Again, it's like, why start?
It really comes down to, I think, purpose. I learned how to do this thing, and I don't like learning things and then wasting that knowledge. I want to continue it. But really, I just passionately believe in humanizing HR. I think HR people, in my jobs, I've talked to a lot of HR people. A lot of time it's HR is where you go when you get in trouble. HR are the people that fire you. HR are the people that hire you. Or HR are the people when someone says something, And when I have conversations, when I meet people and when they talk to me, I realize like HR are great people. They're humans. And I really want, and I'm passionate about fighting through that stigma of HR and really focusing on the people behind it. Also, HR is so wide. When you go to HR Tech and they talk about employee experience as 26 items. HR people, a lot of the companies I talk to, 1,000 people and less, they have like 2 HR people for like 800 employees or 2 HR people for 200 employees. And they have to handle so much. And there's so much nuance to so A, there's a volume of work, and B, there's a nuance to every bit of the volume. So I think there's just constant places to learn along the way. And then thirdly, this is fun. Like, I have fun doing podcasts. I've gotten feedback from people saying, hey, your podcast is pretty fun. HR can get a little stuffy sometimes. So it really is that full purpose of, I'm passionate about it. I'm passionate about humanizing people. I want to share and I want to have fun. So that's why I'm putting all the effort into doing this. I'm not getting paid. In fact, I'm paying to do all of this out of my own pocket. ADP has been, my new employer has been extremely supportive of this, but this is my thing. And I'm really excited to see where it goes and where these conversations take me.
I appreciate the fact that you say you're doing it for the passion and not the money, because here's a quick tip for everybody that's out there. It is hard to be good at this, and it's really hard to generate revenue. And so many people I talk to, Tom, they think you're going to generate money day one. Unless you're Conan O'Brien, and I don't know who in HR world is Conan O'Brien. I got some thoughts that are close. But in all seriousness, this is something you have to do because you really enjoy it. And I appreciate, one of the reasons I agreed to do this is that I appreciate the fact that you are so passionate about it, and that you want to bring in people that maybe didn't have a voice. And that's, the amplification of others is really big. And, you've talked about having fun. I think that was something we always try to do with HR Social Hour, is make it engaging and fun, and not asking just what the flavor of the day is. Because unfortunately that's not just an HR podcast thing. That's a lot of podcasts.
Yeah.
I want to thank you again and congratulate you for taking that path as opposed to, oh yeah, I'm just doing it for the money. Because, man, that if you're listening and you're doing that, please don't. It just doesn't work.
It wouldn't be a bad thing if someday people gave me money to do this, but like that is not even kind of a goal. And it's it's this. It has to be a passion, and it truly is.
All in due time, Tom. All in good time. Well, you talked about the goals. You've talked about why now and why this new thing. Talk a little bit about what should we expect when it comes to episodes. Obviously, we're having this conversation today to kind of prep people. It's your origin. It's your zero issue. What's coming up with the podcast that people should be aware of and get excited about?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. So I think the first major thing to talk about is I've got some guests that I left hanging when I closed down the last podcast. So, I'm a person of my word, and I'm going to be starting out with everybody that I had already committed to talking with. So Christy Engler, who's taken over the Twitter chat, she's going to be on the podcast. Matt Meadows, who's a founder of a performance management. I just love his focus on that. He's going to be on the podcast. Laura Mazzullo, we actually recorded that episode because, I was sick and we had to push this out. I've actually recorded episode 2 already, and it's my first ever video podcast. So this year we're going to be doing some special episodes on video. So we have YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. I mean, I've got all the mediums covered, which I never had before. So there's just a lot more platforms. I'm going to try to get this amplified more. And I also just want to say, it sounds crazy. Like I just listed all these things. I have zero interest in being an influencer. 0.0 interest. Like I don't care. Like this is not about me at all. It truly is about amplifying these other people, amplifying ideas and getting them out there. And if I'm going to do it on my own and if I'm going to have these conversations, I want to make sure I can amplify them as loud and wide as I can. So I made my first TikTok ever last week. It felt so weird. And it was the last thing I ever wanted to do in my life. But here I am. And it was truly to try to, hey, Laura's had on TikTok. Let's do it. Let's see if we can't help amplify in this new platform. So I knew I throw a lot out there, but the one is we're going video. We have a lot of mediums. We'll have links to all that in here. We're bringing back a lot of people from the HR community. And when I say HR community, I mean hashtag HR community. We're on LinkedIn, mostly living in Twitter. I found that's where I found you. That's where you found me. That is a community that's really important to me, and I want to make sure we're bringing a lot of those folks in. But also, I'm going to be bringing in people more locally. We've got the Soundwave logo. They also kind of look like the Rocky Mountains when I watch the sunset every day, which is partially why I picked that. So I'm going to try to be getting some more people here in Denver, creating some more local conversations from leaders as well. And those conversations, as I source them, I'm starting to get a lot of people saying, oh, you have a podcast. I want to be on it. And I love that. If you hear this and you want to be on it, reach out to me. But I've got a pretty good long list now. And the way I'm kind of building it out is like, what's most interesting to me right now? Or who caught my attention right now? Or who's got the most relevant piece right now? That's what helps keep it interesting for me, is keep it organic to like, you know what? I know I've got 10 people loaded, but that's really interesting. Let's jump on. So it's going to be a lot of different type of conversations. I mean, we're going to go into burnout. We're going to go into HR tech. We're going to talk to founders. We're going to talk to people that are on the front lines, talk to HR generalists that are really on the front lines. It's going to be a little bit of everything, and it's really going to be the conversation that drives it. For example, Eric Kershott, I'd known him. I'd seen him for a long time. I had like 10 people I was going to like have on the podcast previously. And he was so passionate about disc. We just got on a call and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so interested in this. Let's record immediately. I want to share this with everybody. So it's pretty organic, but that HR community is still a huge driver for me.
Tom, believe it or not, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to do something.
We're at break already?
We're bringing something back that's new and old at the same time, and then we're going to come back to the conversation.
All right, that sounds good.
Tom, it is the debut and the return of the HR Hot Sauce, and because I'm the one that gets to host this thing, you're going to be answering the questions this time. Are you ready?
I really probably should have prepped for it. Yeah, I'm ready though.
These are rapid fire. Here we go. What most engages you?
Anybody talking to me. Just anybody that'll talk back to me about anything. I'll get into whatever conversation interests them. I just love talking to people. Literally, other human beings. I don't care if it's work, in a grocery store line, other people talking to me about anything.
Tom, what's your favorite piece of technology you get to use at work?
Not Squadcast. I'd probably say it's I'd probably get to say Zoom Info. I love it. It just gets really great info with intent. It's really cool to watch that progress.
Favorite interview question to ask or be asked?
I love when I'm interviewing for a position and they ask, who are you as a person? What do you like to do? when they're really trying to get to know who I am as a candidate, not just grill me on some technical questions.
I think this is going to be a new favorite for everyone. Your favorite workday lunch?
I've been really big on like shawarma and like Mediterranean bowls at lunch. It's kind of guilt-free and it always tastes great.
Tom, what's your most unique or useless skill?
I'm not really skilled at a lot of things. I think probably what I'd say it's like my dad described me as a mile wide and an inch deep. And I think that was probably, hopefully it's not as insulting as it sounds, but I think probably my biggest skill is or most unique skill is that I've got 1,000 things I can do okay.
And I think that's why we connect so well. What makes your day at work?
Having someone thank me for reaching out. And yes, as the sales guy, that does happen. When someone says, hey, that actually can help me do my job. When somebody is thankful that I'm actually doing what I do, because that's why I do it.
Tom, final question. Mild, medium, hot, or nuclear?
Well, I came up with the hot sauce, so I'm a nuclear guy. I like it as hot as it can be. If my back, my neck's not sweaty, wasn't hot enough.
Tom, I think it's fair to say this is the first time you've ever answered these questions, yes?
100%.
Well, congratulations, you survived hot sauce. Let's get back to the show. Tom, you survived the HR hot sauce. How you feeling, man?
It's just those reminders that you can stare at something 100 times, but then when you have to recite it yourself, it can still be really hard.
I personally love the fact that I love the questions that connect individuals. So you're going to have different conversations, and you talked about so many great people already. I know you've got other great people in the queue. The fact, though, that there are these things that will connect them, that's a really special thing, and I want to congratulate you on continuing that. That's a really, I'm a fan of that. Obviously, I mean, we did it. I'm not going to act like
I was going to say, you know where I found it.
Well,
I didn't steal your questions. I wasn't copy and pasting.
No, not at all.
That resonated with me, was that everybody has these conversations, but like, let's put everybody out the same questions and connect everybody that way. I loved that about your show, and I tried to take a different spin on it. But
absolutely, you absolutely did. I mean, look,
it's the way to do it.
We don't own these things, right? I mean, it was funny. I was just watching a YouTube video, not HR related, an interview with a CEO of an organization that I follow, and the gentleman that's doing the interview, he gets to the end, he's like, "Oh, I want to ask you these 5 questions or whatever they were," and dude, he just lifted Stephen Colbert's Colbert questionnaire questions, and I was so insulted because I'm like, okay, I know who you got those from, which are great questions, really good questions that Stephen Colbert asked. It's like, man, why not at least give the guy credit? It drives me nuts because the guy that was being interviewed probably may not know who they're from, but I'm like, man, come on, if you're gonna by the way, lift 5 and use or 4, whatever it were, literally verbatim, just took them right out of the script. Drives me bananas, man. Like, come up with some.
I mean, it's so easy to like have a take, right? Like, it's like take the idea. Like, yeah, so like I'm in sales, right? I'm in business development, and it's funny. We did a roundtable today, all sharing, different ideas of, how to craft emails and conversations. And most of the best practices that I was throwing out there, I could think back to who I learned it from 10 years ago or 5 years ago or 15 years ago. And having experience, really that experience is a culmination of a bunch of other people's experiences. And if you just copy and paste their experiences, it doesn't work. I'm not going to be as good at doing what John does. I'm not going to be as good at doing what other people do. So I have to take those experiences and then put them through the filter of me, and then they do change a little bit. But really, people are only as good as what they've learned from other people. Like, very few people are just pure learning. I mean, there's people out there, like I'm sure Adam Grant. I feel like I watch him and I'm like, is he coming up with all of this stuff himself? Like, wow, it's so amazing.
Let's talk a little bit about learning, and in particular with podcasting. Again, you've done it for several years now. What has surprised you personally or professionally that you have learned on this journey so far?
A few things. Probably number one, it really is a lot of work. And it was one of those, I looked at podcasts and went, oh, if this dude can do it, I can do it. And it wasn't you, but there's a lot of podcasts out there that you're like, what is this? But it really is a ton of work. But then I have to follow that up with, you can do it. It's not, I encourage anybody that has a passion or that likes connecting to do this. It's a lot of work, but it's not, I mean, it's easy, but it's a lot of work. It's one of those kind of things. Like it's hard to describe. Probably the biggest thing really is, and I've touched on this, is just that HR community. It's filled with so many great people with so many great insights. And I'm constantly humbled at the people I connect with. Somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn. I thought I was connected through somebody else. And so I kind of took the conversation on, and I realized I had no connection to this person at all. They just found me and reached out to me. And it was just such a cool conversation. It was such a cool person. I went, man, these HR leaders are really great. There's great people out there. And I expect to talk to hundreds more that I've never met. The third, and I think is the most important, is that these conversations, they don't end when I hit stop. Half the time when I record a podcast and we end it, we keep talking for 30 minutes. And I'm going, I really wish I hadn't hit stop. And then the conversation moves over to LinkedIn. And then the conversation moves into us calling each other over, every quarter over 2 and 3 years. That, when you open yourself up, when people open themselves up to you, it's a real energy and a real force that continues. And there's not a start and stop to it. And I love that. The number of actual friends I have because of podcasting is unbelievable to me. And the way the conversations are never ending is really, really exciting. And that's probably my favorite thing that I've learned through all this. And finally, you touched on it. There's a massive economy behind this. I've got 8,000 people from 7,000 countries reaching out to me. These aren't real numbers. It feels like they're real. But I mean, the number of people reaching out, I can amplify. I can make it professional. I can get you followers. I can get you people. It is such an economy around podcasting. It's crazy. You warned me off the bat too.
Well, I think what's very interesting there, and I have a lot of opinions on this topic that I won't share, other than to say that most of the people that claim to be experts have never done it. And with all due respect, to your point earlier, this is an incredible amount of work. It's super fun to get on here and record, but oh, by the way, we have to develop an outline and kind of conversation before the conversation. Then we need to record the thing, and then Tom's going to take it and he's going to download it, put it on some editing software, and clean it up and chop it up and maybe take out some things or add some things, put in music, show notes, all of it. It's not just press play and go. Those people, though, that market, particularly to tell you they're podcast experts, most of them have never made a podcast in their life. And that's insulting because, as I said earlier, it's hard to be good. It's hard to be consistent. And I think that's where people really don't understand. And quite honestly, how many times, though, have you gotten somebody a pitch and you go Google them and you can't find anything they've ever done?
Yeah.
So,
exclusively.
I have, I started meditating last summer, which has been really helpful. And, now I just delete everything. My old co-host Wendy would say, no is a complete sentence. I live by that. I live by that now.
I love it.
And yeah, particularly, that person they're doing a job. I don't know if it's the job they should be doing. But I think it's more when you say I'm an expert. And not so much.
I can't tell you I'm an expert in anything.
As you said earlier, you said in the HR hot sauce, you're a mile wide and an inch deep. Unfortunately, that's what some of these people are trying to pitch. And I think it is very funny when I still get pitches, which is often, that nobody went and looked at Apple Podcast or Spotify or somewhere and would see that the last episode was released in December of 2022. Not coming back to bring a new one out, gang.
Yeah.
And marketer, hey, just 10 minutes, 10, not even 10, 2 minutes of research. You could find that. I would think. I go look them up sometimes. Anyway, this is not a diatribe about podcasting because it is much more good and fun and beneficial than it is detrimental, like some of those knuckleheads can be.
Yeah, 100%. Well, this gets into my day job. It's about intent, right?
Absolutely.
When I'm trying to engage people to sell them, if I'm just shooting out random emails and don't know anything and cut and pasting, and I don't actually care about the person. I don't know about the person. I don't know about the company. I don't know what their problems are. I'm not trying to figure out their problems are. I'm trying to sell a widget. It just blows up. It doesn't work. And salespeople, don't do that. Podcast people, don't do that. Do your research. Actually care. Actually try to help.
We're going to get off the soapboxes, and I want to talk a little bit about, we've talked a lot about podcasting, Tom, but I want to talk about more profession, industry related. And we're going to remove the pandemic because it's hard to believe. Isn't it hard to believe it? We're 4 years now almost since all this shenanigans started. And
yeah, it's wild.
Things have definitely changed in the HR world and everybody's world. But, we saw things there that we didn't expect. But beyond that, what have you seen in your time, in your different roles, talking to the community that you talk to? What's happened that you didn't expect, and what do you think's the next big thing for human resources?
This is a simple and a giant question, all at once. It's one of those, I think. I think first off, HR is pretty circular, right? Like the conversations. I talked to in my first podcast. I talked to a guy, Brooks, who is literally like one of the top HR guys in the country in the 80s. And everything he was talking about is the same stuff we're still today talking about. So like there's this circularity in the people space. Oh my gosh, we need people. Oh my gosh, we can't lose these people. Oh my gosh, how do we not lose them? We should engage them. We should build their skills. Oh man, the economy's getting tight. Let's get rid of these people. Oh wait, we lost some of our best people. Now we can't do our jobs as well. Oh my gosh, we need to get good people back. Oh, now it's booming. Now we need a ton of people. Like it's this circular wheel that follows the economy, and the economy is going up and down. So I think I always like to acknowledge that. We're always in something new. There's always new pressures, but it's a lot of the same things. So get back to your base. What's that base? Culture. Get the right people onboard them right, train them right, engage them. It's all, it's like, everything I needed to learn, I learned in kindergarten, like that old, I don't know if it's a book or a phrase but that old idea, yes, I think it's a book. Yeah. I'll get it and put it on the show notes so we can give proper credit. But, I think number one in HR is it's circular. And I think and we're hearing that we're in one of the spots of talent. Like, how do we keep our talent? Like, I know so many people being laid off right now, but I also know so many companies that can't find talent. It's this crazy time. But I think it's really focusing on understanding the talent. And when you get it, onboard them, engage them, and have that strong culture. Again, it's executing on the 101. I also think, you mentioned, we're in an inflection point right now. The pandemic's over. And the pandemic changed everything. I'm in the HRIS HCM world. Everything in that world changed. Like everything, for the most part, everyone grew. Market share grew. Money grew. Now you're seeing advertisements. You can't turn on the TV and not see advertisement for somebody. Everything kind of changed there. And it's because the reality's changed. And I think we're at a true inflection point now where it's this post-pandemic period where technology's evolved and readily available, and pricing's getting pretty good. And a lot of companies are still legacy, and a lot of companies bought a technology and are maybe sitting in it. So I think we're at this interesting point to where technology's come a long way. The economy, we've moved past COVID. We're still feeling some of the pressures of it, but we need to move forward and focus on where we're at today, because where we're at today is a perfect time to really right your ship, really get your things together, because I truly believe the pandemic was horrible. It created opportunities, and we're at this really inflection point to take advantage of the things. And I think finally, to land the ship, next big thing's here. Data, technology, efficiencies. I'm not going to go into an ADP commercial here, I promise, but it's here. AI is here. It's 2 years away from being a different thing. It's 2 more years away from being even more different. But I think we're at that phase where 1997, I got my first cell phone. I got my flip phone. And I was one of the first people. And everyone's like, oh, look at Tom. He has a cell phone. I'm not going to have a cell phone. Vast population not only has a phone, but a computer in their pocket. So I think we're at that kind of phase where it went from, yeah, we know there's technology. We know we have data. Everyone's talked about it ad nauseum. we're at a place where it's now at your fingertips, and it's not a nice to have, it's a need to have. So AI is not going anywhere. You can like it, not like it. You don't need to adopt it this second, but it's here, and it's here to stay.
People have been asking me about how things different. I've been in this business since 1999, and literally started my first staffing job without a computer. Right, like it was all paper apps and everything.
Right.
It is interesting you use the term you actually use circularity, which I think you just made up. So I'm going to use it too because I like it. It is fascinating to see how things have come back around. But I think to your point, find the right people, treat them well, lead them. I think that is leadership continues to be a big gap in many organizations. And then you just drop the AI on top of it. Skynet's real. I've been a fan for a while, and yeah, the robot. We will soon be, we'll be taking care of the robot overlords before we know it. But it's just very fascinating though to see how things have changed, and not at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm a tech guy. I use the AI HR admin question tool on my ADP app for the first time. Literally, I was like, I've got a question about benefits. I got a compelling event. I was like, I'm not even going to talk to a person. And I hated that I had to go do it. And it was actually pretty smooth and easy. I was like, whoa. I was like, I just AI'd. I did it. And it wasn't bad. So it's even someone like me who's in tech that leans into this stuff. It's really hard to it's not easy getting into this age of adoption. It's like I said, it's an inflection point. It's kind of a crazy time.
Well, when you talk about AI, unfortunately, there are AI generated podcasts now. And
get out of here.
Oh yeah. Are you familiar with Dudesy?
No.
Okay, so I'm actually a fan of Dudesy. Dudesy is Chad Kultgen and Will Sasso from Mad TV. Those guys did 10-minute podcast for years. And Dudesy is a company. It's an AI platform that the people behind Dudesy have hired Will and Chad to make a show, and they gave Dudesy access to everything. It has all their bank account information. It has everything.
Wow.
So the show is generated. The questions and the conversation is led by an AI that gives them directives. It is fascinating, and they've gotten in a lot of trouble.
Wow.
If you heard about there was the Tom Brady stand-up set that came out, and it was like an hour of Tom Brady doing stand-up. It was AI generated.
No,
they're behind that.
That's crazy.
And then they just put out, and they were in big trouble for this one. They put out a George Carlin Back from the Dead stand-up special, and claimed AI did it. Apparently, there's some scuttlebutt as to who actually did it, but anyway, the Carlin estate's gone after him. Dudesy's really very interesting because they have befriended this thing. To me, it's a thing. It's a voice in the voice in the void, but they talk about it as a person. It's really interesting, and it's a very funny show.
Wow.
Like, it's comedy based. Anyway, Dudesy. Enough about AI podcasts though, because we don't want to know that. I want to know, or maybe you are listening. What are you listening to these days that's got you excited, engaged, and interested?
I am a man of a million mediums, not just podcasts, so I don't have the deepest. But what I'll say is that, Trevor Noah's new podcast, I listened to that. I just love his curiosity. I think curiosity is kind of the key to everything. And I think he's one of the best and most curious. Punk Rock HR, Laurie Rudiman.
Big fan. Big fan.
That has always been there and always will be there for me. That's always front and center. Trish and Steve, HR Happy Hour, they were also from the beginning. Dug back into the HR Social Hour Half Hour podcast. Bonnie Endicott, I was like, oh yeah, I met her literally because of your podcast. So I went back and pulled that episode. So, that's, I don't know if it's taboo to say to this audience, but I listen to the Joe Rogan podcast sometimes because he'll have guests on that, Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's 3.5 hour conversation. I don't hear anybody go that deep with any of these people ever. And I just find that really fascinating. I'm not going to get into the politics of that, but 3.5 hour podcast, I hate it. And I'm also, when I see certain guest names, I'm like, oh yeah. I want to go that deep with that person. So yeah, I'd have to throw that in there, but I'm not going to endorse that per se here.
Well, you've got Engaging HR. Here we are. We're going to be coming to the end here, I want to talk a little about cadence. Like, what is the plan? You mentioned some of the great guests you've already got lined up. I certainly look forward to hearing from them, because the cool thing is I know some of these people. You always learn something different, particularly when you ask them hot sauce questions that you have out there.
Yeah.
But what's the cadence? Where when can people find this new thing?
So cadence is going to be bi-monthly. It's going to be this episode we're recording here is going to launch on Thursday. I'm going to launch on Thursdays twice a month, and I will be kind of posting that out here. Let's see if I can pull up my calendar here. So the first, this episode is going to come out on February 16th is when you'll be able to start listening to this. And then I'll be releasing episode 2 on the 27th. So it'll probably be the second and the fourth week of every month if I follow that trajectory. Twice a month, we'll be coming to you with new, fresh content.
Tom, this has been an absolute joy, but it's now time for me to hand it back to you, because I think I've asked all. Unless, are there anything else I should know? Anything else you want to tell me before I turn the hosting duties back over?
Specifically, no. I mean, this has been great. It's just I miss your voice. You have a great podcasting voice. I wish I could just have your voice for my voice. But it's so soothing. I forgot how much I enjoyed your voice.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, John, I do. I know you're semi-retired. We had talked about it, but I do want to make sure people can find you. What's your contact information? Where can people find you? And we'll put that in the show notes. Make sure we share it with everybody as well.
Absolutely. You can find me on Twitter, X, Twix. I like whoever's calling it Twix. I didn't come up with that.
Twix.
Twix. I kind of like that. At Jon_Thurmond. I'm not talking a lot about HR in there. It's honestly more about wrestling cards and my interests there. And I'm
Bazooka?
on LinkedIn, but Asuka.
Okay, Asuka card.
Asuka.
You got to check out his Twitter to know what we're talking about, but that's pretty
Asuka,
awesome.
who's one of the greatest Japanese female wrestlers in the world right now, but in the last 20 years, she's my favorite. But yeah, in fact, that's a big thing I've got going on is I get to go to my first professional wrestling show in April. I'm going to Philadelphia, not to WrestleMania, but to Stardom, which is the largest women's promotion in Japan. I'm going to Stardom.
Cool.
I've not been to a professional wrestling event since 1990. This is a big deal for John. I'm really excited about that. Anyway, if you're on Twitter and you want to see that, that's great. And I'm on LinkedIn. Just don't try to sell me stuff because, But I'm there too. You can find me there. And if you want to listen to the old show, the HR Social Hour Half Hour Podcast is on all the major platforms wherever you're listening to this, as well as hrsocialhourpodcast.podbean.com, where you'll find this episode as a sneak track, as a surprise to everybody.
There we go. I love it. So let's wrap it up. I do want to give a shout out. We have our own theme music this year. No other podcast will have this music. This band Break Signals out of Denver, Colorado here. As one of my old colleagues is in the band, and they just released an album on Spotify, and I said, hey, this is actually pretty good music. Can I use one of your songs as my intro and outro theme song? He's like, yeah, dude, that'd be really cool. So I just want to give a big shout out to Jay Green and the Break Signals band here in Denver. We'll have a link to them, but our theme song is called Better. And what better way to intro and exit the show than a song talking about getting better every day. So a huge shout out.
Awesome.
I'm super proud to have my own theme song, my own actual music. It's really cool. So I'll send you the band. You should check them out. They have some good songs. I think knowing your affinity, you might like a couple of the tunes as well.
Excellent.
So a big shout out to them. I want to give a big shout out to Carl Polowitz, who helped me with the logo, helped me with getting all the logos cut and put into social media, helped me with our graphics for the new podcast. Carl's out in the marketing space. I've known him since I lived in New York 20 years ago. Just an awesome dude, an awesome friend. And I just want to give a big shout out, big thank you to Carl Polowitz. Without the band, giving us that, you're helping create this culture, helping make this podcast unique, and helping it be what I'm so excited to share with all of you. So with that, stay tuned. We're done with episode 1. We've done it. We're out there. Episode 2 coming up with Laura Mazzullo. talking about recruiting HR people, talking about breaking through some of the tough exterior of HR and just people in general, and talking about looking inwardly and self-reflecting. So episode 2 is going to be an awesome episode. Can't wait to share that with you. But thank you for joining us. For Tom's Engaging HR, this has been episode 1. We're going to keep getting better every day. Break signals. Take it away.